Welcome to the final round of the training tournament, the Rat Training Tournament. Today we're going to look at two games, and the second game is between two previously undefeated players. Not sure if this one is as well, but let's go into it. So we have Peon on the Vampire Counts, and we have Hoot on Dwarves. On Needle Mist Isle. I think this map is interesting because I think it forces a lot of fights around the center because the home points are pretty far from the spawns, but with some movement towards the side spawn points, then it can spread that far. If the game does center in the middle, I would assume that this will go towards the Vampire Counts because that's sort of a style that the Vampire Counts want to do. They want to be fighting in the middle. And yeah, just like looking at these armies off the bat, we have one Vampire Count army that's very wide, and then a Dwarven army that's very tall and with a lot of shooting. So these are like very interesting armies to compare. And let's just look at Kemler real quick. So we have Wind of Death. Interesting spell. Maybe this is to kill Slayers. Because it's low. It's... Oh, the Undercast is 100% AP and the Overcast is not. Okay, I forgot that. I think I knew that at some point. Raised Dead, Invocation of the Heck, and then usually he has an item that that heals. Okay, so he needs to be surrounded by things dying and then it heals. And then the hunger to heal himself. And then we have two White Kings, Scab Scraths, and then a Mortis Engine and two Corpse Carts. So yeah, so this is definitely a lot of like Chaff and Mortis Engine sort of build. And then on Thoric we have Wrath of Ruin Slowness, and 3, 4, 5 Iron Drakes and 1 Chrome Delvers. Yeah, this is a really interesting army by Hoot. Yeah, so if we are spawning in, we see the enemy army. I think this is well suited, minus the White Kings, which will be a little bit problematic. I think if you're Dwarves, you want to stay in kind of a wider shooting arc around the center, so that we don't get tied down by too many small things. Like we don't want one or let's say one Black Knight getting into all of our range, but we don't. We could consider spreading out, but I think we'll become easy targets. So I think as Dwarves we want to stay here shooting in. Maybe we send like a miner over to point 3, something like that real quick, just to capture, get a little early advantage. And then if you're the Vampire Counts, I'm probably just sending like one unit to both sides to force the Dwarves to fight on point, or to do something, spread out a little bit, point 3 and point 1. But then I'm just charging up the middle with the majority of forces. I think that's a reasonable approach, and you want to just like spread out enough that you that you're not going to get like roasted too many units in one go. And the Black Knights should prove kind of problematic for this Dwarven army, even with the Slayers. But yeah, we'll see if the Iron Drakes can shoot down. Yeah, so I like this. This is a similar idea. And yeah, okay, so we see both players kind of correctly identifying that plan. So maybe we could get a little bit wider with these, but surprised they're not shooting at the... Maybe there's terrain blocked. they should have line of sight. So they should get attack orders definitely on the Black Knights. And a second unit of Black Knights. And with the dire wolves, I'm starting to worry that this position from the dwarves will have a hard time defending all of their range assets. Probably want to see another Slayer unit pretty soon. White King's diving as we said. Grom Delvers are hidden. I'm not sure why they're hidden. No, they're spotted now. One thing about this is sort of like the Mortis engine actually won't be able to do very much damage here. So maybe thinking about it, one way to approach this would have been, because you know everything is spread out and we want to like get on ranged units, we want to be dropping summons on the ranged units with Kemmler. So almost we want to kind of like sit back and prepare for pushing, or just pushing wider, getting through. There's not really a whole lot here that will kill all of this in melee, so definitely is a good. Miners might make sense to like fill in holes, but I think the Black Knights will become an issue. This unit also is looking pretty juicy. Okay, so we've seen that too, but it probably is just better to like collapse on this formation from all sides at once. And then if you're dwarves, maybe pulling Iron Drakes back, reforming lines, getting Slayers on White Kings, that kind of thing. I mean, all of this again is just skeleton, so wow, that was a lot of damage. So we're not worried. We're not so worried about what's going on here.
One of your units has been destroyed.
That's a lot of damage. I want to say maybe the dwarves, seeing this army, perhaps gets a couple more miners before engaging, just to hold the front. Like these now are good, but we have a few units, range units, that have been tied up kind of unnecessarily, I believe. And the Slayer all the way over here. So this is kind of what I was talking about at the beginning of the game, that the Doomseekers is probably a little too tall for. On the other hand, there aren't that many zombies left. But yeah, but this is what I was talking about, that there's like this sort of gave us an isolation that we could that we can capitalize on. And it's kind of interesting that this unit didn't do more damage to the miners. I wonder why that's the case. I guess their stats aren't amazing and they don't have armor piercing. Maybe these would be good. You can sometimes cycle charge Slayers, but you have to be with, especially with armored cav, you gotta be very quick on getting them out. Yeah, so I mean, so tactically what we're looking at here is dwarves returning to a shooting line and trying to get behind some melee units. And from the vampire counts, I probably would ignore this for the most part and just come over here and collapse on these juicy targets in the backfield. I think we want to invest as much as we can in shutting this really valuable pocket. Shutting down this really valuable pocket, and it's relatively fragile because we have Iron Drakes in melee at this point. There's only a couple miners, so maybe we'll have one miner there, one miner there, one miner here eventually, but then mostly not. And especially with this Slayer being so far over here, probably can just ignore it, and by the time the Slayer gets back, we've already gotten in on the range. And as for summons, like I probably would want to see some Dwarf Warriors just to fill out the oh, let's see this Wind of Death. Oh, good dodge. Yeah, that was nice. I'm guessing we want to see a couple Dwarf Warriors or even another unit of Slayer, probably to reform some our shooting line. Also, it's funny that these zombies have 0 melee attack. It doesn't mean that they don't do any damage, because they do some damage. There's like a caps out at a certain level. It caps. But that is pretty funny that they have 0 melee attack. And as a holding unit against Vampire Coast Chaff, it's probably doing a lot of work. Scab's great, the 0 AP. It's kind of interesting.
One of your units has been destroyed.
This Cryptor unit will pretty easily break through the front line, because these aren't very strong units. Poor Kemmler is withering away. The Felbats I think make sense here too. We're just gonna stop up some of this. Interestingly, the value is massively in favor of the Hoot, because it feels like this position is like at every point almost crumbled away. I mean, there's a lot of healing for the vampire count, so it could be that there's not. I guess this is a big loss too over here. But yeah, so now we have that Black Knights coming around to provide some support. But it does feel now that if I had to just guess who is winning here, I'm guessing that vampire counts are winning. We don't have a lot of chaff left as vampire counts, which is problematic. But on the other hand, it feels like this position is breaking, in the sense that like now we're getting into our, okay, so here come the Walk of Slayers, which is good. I think that makes sense. Maybe the Slayers will actually turn the tide, because there are quite a few Slayers in this mix. So we've transferred a little bit from, but the one thing about Slayers and Wind of Death is that Wind of Death is very good overcasted against low armor units. So it might wipe out an entire unit of Slayers. So if you shoot it down the pipe, like here, for example, it might kill everything. But yeah, without the Slayers, I think vampire counts are winning pretty definitively. With the Slayers, maybe not so much, but I think it's still to be determined.
One of your units has been destroyed.
Where's that Morris engine? Is it still alive? Maybe that explains the value. The Morris engine is dead. So Hex Wraiths. Hex Wraiths might have made more sense than the Black Knights originally. Turin was using them recently, and he made them look usable. They have decent stats. Maybe they'll trade well into miners, but it's hard to say for sure.
One of your units has been destroyed.
So what is Kemmler's passive heals up? So it's double healing on this blob when he's does he need to be in melee? No. So he'll just heal himself and others. And it's the same amount as I'm learning about this faction today. Oh, so this isn't this is the Balefire one. To give flame resistance. So it doesn't heal. Yeah, that's a really interesting tech, especially because the opponent brought so much fire. Okay, one Wind of Death here. You gotta be way more careful when Wind of Death is on the field. That's why it's one of the best spells to lose to. At 20 Winds of Magic, this spell will outright kill an entire infantry unit. So one well-timed Wind of Death here would turn the entire battle. It's not something you can really mess around with. I'm still waiting for it. If I don't get it, I'll be a little sad, but we might have used up, we might not have that kind of wall. So I think we've finally gotten in on the range units here, but it's maybe a little too late. This is nice, the Direwolves getting behind. I think this is the right call. Now there's nothing there supporting. Slayers are going to be there, but these Direwolves might even want to just charge the Slayers depending. And we're not quite at single cap territory.
One of your units has been destroyed.
Kemmler, I feel like Kemmler is kind of nice to have that additional healing. You can tell there haven't really been Winds of Deaths casted because we have pretty low kills. Maybe just that one that missed. Oh. I saw it. I think it was undercast. The undercast is a lot less efficient than the overcast one. The overcast one is almost 3 times more effective. It is about 3 times more effective. But the only caveat is that all of that additional is not AP. But it's a huge amount of increase for not that much additional WOM. But it's a really strong spell in very, very specific cases. The combination of these 2 units should probably be able to kill the Slayer unit. Okay, so let's think. Is the game over? We have a big blob of Slayers. We have Chaff here. We have healing. Magic has just gone up, so we don't have a lot of magic as vampires. We have 1 unit of AP Cav, but a lot of Slayers. I think right now we're just missing the right tools. I think if we had at least 1 unit of Graveguard in here, almost all of these Slayers would be punished so hard. Slayers don't like to fight armor, and kind of using like armored anti-infantry units would be a good way of fighting this. I want to say at this point, if vampires hold the 2 wide points, and I think that's the right strategy, the Dwarves will have a hard time holding a triple cap. So I think there's still hope for vampires, but it's going to require capturing over here super quickly and holding these side points. On the flip side, the Slayers are very fast. So I think if we're Dwarves, we assess that. We have this big blob in the middle, but we're close to dangerous territory. We're sending something to capture this. Maybe we're a Slayer and a Miner or something like that, so it's not easily dislodged. And we're trying to capture one of these points very soon. The turning point is maybe 1100. Let's see. So if they haven't captured it yet, So if this is 800, 200, 500, 700,
You have
350, so 1150. So if maybe as vampire we put our forces here just to block the cap and say you have to get through us. And similar, we want to block off this point. Probably. Oh, so we do have some Graveguard. Maybe it's a little bit late for Graveguard. But also some Crypt Ghouls might have been a good answer to this. Yeah.
one of your units has been destroyed.
So if 1150 is what vampire counts get to before the dwarves get to 800, then dwarf need the triple cap, and that's like such a bad scenario for dwarves, because they're relatively slow. I mean, Doom Seekers do change things a lot, but not infinitely so. I think this is really nice too. From vampires, we have this kind of like mobile goon squad. Let's see.
One of your units has been destroyed.
1400, 800. It kind of looks like a lot of these missile units paid for themselves. I'm interested to see at the end of the game. But I think that also is because we didn't have much DPS there. And maybe the Mortis engine would have been a good one to have kept back until these units were compromised. And yeah, so okay, this is like exactly how you want to do it. Dwarves move, assuming that you have enough capway here, and you don't have more. Yeah, probably. So as soon as dwarves commit, hopefully they overcommit. As vampires, you move back into the center to try to quickly cap it. It's going to be easier said than done though, because there's not a lot of cap weight for vampires. So the triple cap point, 300, 600, yeah, we're already in triple cap territory for dwarves. Knowing that, and this is why you always want to, like, even if things are really heated, if it's close, you want to do this. This would have been another good thing to maybe have had earlier. Although it'll probably do a lot of work in the late game. So 250, yeah, if you're at 1250, then your opponent would have to be at 1,000. It's pretty important to like do the math. And inform your decisions as early as possible, and then you're just summoning everything here. And more importantly, you want to fight off the point, because especially as vampire counts, your units are good at holding for long periods of time. They're not good at cap weight. So you really want to try to stop them from even getting there. And yeah, look how far these units have to come now, and we can just rotate around. So I want to say the sin that dwarves played, or the sin that they committed, was not allocating enough to 0.3 earlier, because the one Slayer unit was able to get isolated and did a lot of work. But their shooting was actually pretty nice in the end, and I liked that strategy. Some vampire counts players will play very high mobility, so that might be a little dangerous, but with the Slayers there, it was pretty nice. So I think vampire counts should win this now. Okay, and so he correctly identifies, Peon correctly identifies, form the wall, keep them off the points. Oh, this is a little dangerous though. We didn't have anything stopping here. Black Knights is a good summon. Both players are doing the right thing, which is like when very limited, um, with very limited resources or very little time left, you just summon your mobility. Nothing else will get to the point in time. So yeah, I think this is a was a very nice game. It was interesting to see like two unique approaches. Hoot's shooting was pretty strong into what vampires brought, and did a good job like protecting his range units with slayers. The mistake that he made was not making this not realizing the danger slightly earlier and allocating some stuff over there to capture and avoid this triple cap scenario. I think if the dwarves had avoided the triple cap scenario, then they were in a good spot to win. And then similarly from the vampire counts, it was a good job like identifying, spreading the dwarves between the two side points and having good picks here on the left side, and then getting to this final holding position. But maybe a few maybe losing the Mortis engine in the beginning was pretty rough. So maybe when we're seeing this starting army, I think this summon is right. Maybe we're summoning after that some of the fell bats just to jump on the range units, and the slayers are not going to be particularly good at killing the range units. Interesting to see these got caught in melee and didn't manage to get their value off. These got a lot of damage in from shooting the corpse carts, or sorry, I guess probably both the corpse carts and the Lord and the Mortis engine. And then the Grim Delvers did a lot of work. Maybe they killed the Mortis engine as well. Yeah, so nicely played by both players. So in this game, we have Rusto on the High Elves, and StrategySavant on Nurgle. Ooh, on Sunken Mire. I like this map. This is a difficult map to pull off shooting, so it'd be kind of interesting to see how the players play it. And the two Death's Head grenades, I would expect them to kind of get shot by some things. So it'd be interesting to see how it's done. Oh, and Imric on, I'm guessing, the dragon. And with the Exalted Hero Squad. So yeah, we got kind of a loaded, it looks like we had some anticipation of like potentially a dragon from the Nurgle side, because we have a lot of like forces invested in killing the Dragon Lord. I'm wondering if the dragon will be happy to take fights with these. I imagine they do okay into the dragon, but not like incredibly well. And he's very strong, so that might be a good target. But anyways, okay, so as usual, we pretend we're the players and we load in and we see how we're going to adjust our opening strategy based on what we see in the enemy army. I think if you're High Elves, you're happy about this start, except for that your dragon is pretty countered. You're thinking about these will be very important in killing the these death heads. So maybe you're getting one over here, two here, and I think you're happy to just take this melee fight. I don't see a lot here that looks particularly scary to the melee units. What you're maybe envisioning or maybe thinking about summoning next into this army, perhaps you're even thinking about investing in another archer of some sort. If you don't have any more of the Illyrian archers, maybe a regular archer, just to keep out the death head. If you're Nurgle, I'm guessing what we're gonna have to do is wait here, maybe put some forces in the trees. Your Marauders will lose to White Lions of Crace, but I imagine Pestigores will trade up. So we might be thinking about summoning Pestigores. I would maybe try to skirmish wherever possible. Like keep these death heads here. And try to like go along the trees so the shooting isn't as effective, and try to just get value with them wherever you can, and then look to summon a bunch of Pestigores. I think that plan makes sense to me. We might also be thinking about toads or something of that nature. Problem with the Marauder Horsemen, it might make sense to keep out Imric. So it could be useful for that purpose, but I'm also worried that it's going to get in a lot of trouble with these archers cav that outrange it. Aha! Okay, so Rusto I think does what I consider to be maybe the best summon here. Alright, so does Imric want to take this fight? We maybe have better healing on Imric. That was interesting. It seems like they got their shots off and did more damage to Imric than Imric could do to them. Are you on your chariots? No. So yeah, so let's say we're rotating here, trying to shoot White Lions, force some action here, take into the trees, maybe even move over here. Chaos Knights also make sense into this composition because we can kind of like mow down some of these units. I would honestly surround. Okay, so move back these units so that we're out of the line of fire of the archers. If Imric chases, move one of them around, move the other one away, and then bring this guy here to attack rear charge Imric. Because I think these two will actually do a lot of damage to him if they're like both fighting him and manage to fight like from behind. Oh, so we've landed. Another good strategy to kind of keep Imric honest. Rancid Visitation. I mean, it's not a bad idea. Rancid Visitation does a lot of damage. It's one of the most cost-effective spells, single entity damage spells. This is nice. No, just have your exalted heroes continue to fight archers. That's sort of their happy place. And yeah, and let's see this this Chaos Knight coming in here and putting some damage onto these White Lions. This is a good pick over here. Okay, so let's think tactically about this. If we're Rusto, I think we have plenty of tools to just move forward and crush this position, be a little greedy with the points. I wouldn't even necessarily have worried about this White Lion, this side point. I would just I would send maybe like one Lyrian Revert to go deal with this. But I'm just pushing up because what's going to happen is Savant has to move back at that point. Because, again, Marauders will lose really definitively to White Lions of Crace. So we just push them off the point, take a point lead. I expect they won't take this fight. Even with the Chaos Knights here, especially now that the Fireborn are here. The Chaos Knights don't want to be countercharged by White Lions, so they want to be in, out, in, out. But if a White Lion is able to come in and attack with a charge, they'll actually get a lot of damage in because they're AP. So we're not so worried about that, but it is nice to have a little bit of mass nearby to like kind of eat some of that charge. Yeah, so maybe we retreat Imric and we say like, okay, the rest of your army won't really get that much value here. Or, you know, we use Imric and the archers to kind of keep peppering this position. But I like moving in now. Like I'm not moving away. I'm moving towards. Sure, we're holding the points here, but we have such a big relative advantage in terms of the infantry. I would like to just use that infantry. Again, I would maybe categorize this as sort of an overreaction, where we have this Marauder Horseman is not going to be doing so much damage to the to, like, I would say either one Reaver or one White Lion or one Archer Cav. And then from Savant side, I'm worried that the Plague Bearers might do a similar thing, but they'll hold, and maybe the idea is to hold and use the Plague Drones to actually do damage. But I feel like Pesticores are such a natural unit to both bring, and I think they would trade pretty well into White Lions. Even if they don't trade up, they'll remove the threat of the White Lions, and sometimes it's less about trading up and more about and sometimes it's more about just getting rid of the things that the other player is going to have a hard time replacing. In that case, there's only 5 White Lions, right? There's not a really comparable unit on the High Elf roster, so we can afford to take a trade down if it's going to give us a bigger advantage. I'm interested to see how these Furies do. They don't have AP, and White Lions do have a lot of armor, but I guess it makes sense. Dragon Prince and Illyrian Reaver. I think the Furies are going to have a hard time dealing with that. But I don't hate sending these 3 Furies and then getting a quick pick on the White Lion over here. Again, just staying kind of cagey, playing around point 1. We'll go get a little isolation. I guess we get a similar response. But if we swung all of our range units over there, perhaps we would get a little local advantage. Or all of our mobility, sorry. This is kind of what I was saying earlier in the game about the White Lions and the Marauders. Maybe we're rear charging too with these. I think I like that idea. Instead of trying to put damage on Imric, we're rear charging to clear out some of these White Lions and keep these guys nearby to keep Imric honest. Oh wow, the Death's Heads killed this pretty quickly. It's interesting. A nice rear charge. So this fight, I think, ended up going pretty nicely for Nurgle, because there was a lot of like good hammer and anvils going on, and we got a nice pick on the life mage, and we got a lot of damage off Imric. Is it enough though? And maybe not, especially because these cav are all doing, the Illyrian Reavers are still getting a lot of poke. If you want to be cute, sometimes you can put, like in a situation like this, you can put this unit on skirmish mode, and it just like say I don't really have to worry about it. It doesn't work the greatest if there's like another fast cav unit. They tend to get touched and start fighting. But in like a slow case like this, you could just put them in guard mode. Okay, so what I expect, real quick, what I expect to happen, I expect the Imric to stay alive. I expect the Marauders to disappear, White Lions to be like damaged, but you know, still functional. And then we have just a relative cav advantage for the High Elf. So I expect that this kind of will resolve in a lot of ways, and then we'll be more free as High Elves to push into point 1. This infantry is still like maybe a little too far away, and also might get a little countered at this point by the couple units of Dragon Princes that are in here. The Arwar is there somewhere. That's my guess. And then I think again, Rusto can kind of sit here on point 2. Maybe with the relatively tattered state of his infantry, it makes more sense to do that now. But probably could even push to point 1 once all of the cav is broken. Illyrian Reavers rear charging Furies seems to be a particularly wow, look how quick they destroyed that. Seems to be a particularly efficient way to remove Furies. Imric is heel capped. Now this Pestigore unit is definitely something that needs to be removed. And maybe we need to see a little bit more infantry from Rusto. But again, High Elves have a hard time removing, or sorry, once they're White Lions, they don't really have DPS, very many DPS infantry. I mean, maybe it makes sense if you're doing like an AP armored infantry wall, you throw another swordmaster in there, or you throw a swordmaster in there just so that you can have a little extra, more of the same, even though it costs more. Kind of looks like Savant did put this in skirmish mode now. And Imric with 2,800. His stats are really high. Yeah, Dragon Princes should trade pretty well into the Pestigores, again, assuming that oh, this is pretty nice, this like second wave of Pestigores. Okay. If we are Savant, we look at the score and we say that we need triple cap. One of these Pestigores almost definitely has to go to this side. We just need something to capture there, and then hope that the rest of your units over here can make the difference. It's looking difficult for Nurgle now, but it might still be possible. But I want to say this now leans towards High Elves. And I guess it had when the White Lions were about to break that that center position. Stealing the back point at this stage of the game is kind of backbreaking because it says that like even though you have all of this, I only need 0.3, and just that little cap here is going to cost you so much time. So yeah, so thinking about this game, I would say both players had good chances and maybe missed a couple key moments, one of which was White Lions pushing into the enemy there from the High Elf side, and from the from Nurgle's side, I think probably one of the key decisions was charging here, especially in investing so heavily in Furies to back up the charge before we had like a wave of Pestigors. So honestly, I probably would have waited to have at least 2 or 3 Pestigors before taking that frontal engagement, because the Marauders trading so down into the White Lions meant that they had to they really had to make up for it. Savant had to make up for it with like nice rear charges and like this really pitched fight. But at the end of the day, the infantry did break those Marauders and allowed the White Lions to eventually capture point 1, but also sort of hold this point at the end of the battle. But I think there was a lot of really nice things here, and I thought the Death's Head, I really liked that style. Maybe Imric is particularly good against them, but into killing the White Lions, or just sniping out this life mage, which they almost did, it was really solid. And I think Rusto's play with the Reaver Archers was really nice here. So I think they provided kind of constant poke against the flying units and made it hard for Savant to get in. I thought it was really interesting.
I knew it. Unending glory.
So good game to both players, and congrats to Rusto, who I think went undefeated in this training tournament. But it was awesome to see everybody grow over the course of the tournament, and hopefully some of these videos were helpful. All right, I don't know if there'll be another training tournament, so we'll have to see what happens next, but there'll be more content in the future, and maybe I'll go back to casting some of my own games and some of the other community member games. All right, till then, adios.